Hey there, Business Freedom Podcast listeners. Man, I'm super psyched to have our guest here today. So quite randomly, I ran into this business owner at an event unrelated to real estate. So we were in Miami together, and a buddy of mine grabbed me and grabbed our guest, Jimmy Rex, from Salt Lake City. And the guy was swiping pictures of like swimming with freaking great white sharks that were like 9 times the size of me. And I was like, what? And then he said, yeah, I have a real estate team and I travel like 53 weeks out of the year. And I'm like, man, you gotta tell me more about that. So Jimmy, why don't you start us off? Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Start us off with a couple minutes about you personally, a little bit of a complexion of your team, the production, kind of hook them with the production of the team, what you'll do this year, and that'll get us started.
Cool. So I've been an agent for almost 15 years now, and I got into the business. Originally, I got in and I did the Mike Ferry thing for about 5-6 years, where you're prospecting for 4 or 5 hours every day, going on appointments all night. And I kind of burned out. I had really good success pretty early on. My second year in the business, I sold 98 homes. And so, I mean, when I say like I was 7 to 8, I was practicing scripts, I was role playing, and then I was on the phones from 8 to 12 every day. I did it pretty religiously. And I loved, I'm making a lot of money, got me through that bad market. But I realized one day I had a buddy of mine, a guy named Eric Hill, actually. And his goal was to go to every country in the world. And he passed away. He hit a mountain. He was like 56 countries in. He was going to do it in under 3 years. And his big goal was like kind of eliminated. And it kind of just woke me up. I'm like, I haven't been on a vacation out of the country in like 6-7 years. I haven't really been living this great life. I've just been working my butt off. And so I met with my real estate coach, a guy named Bill Pipes. He coaches with the Tom Ferry organization. And I said, hey, I don't want to do it this way anymore. Like, I'm burned out. And he said to me, well, you know what would you like your perfect life to look like? Let's design that. And then let's build your real estate business around it. And so I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to go to a bunch of cool sporting events here in the United States. I wanted to spend a lot of time with my family, with friends, going to parties, doing trips, all these different things. And so I set up a business that allowed me to do that, brought on some key people on my team. So my team right now, just so you know, is I've got one admin, I've got a part-time admin, and then I have 3 other buyers agents that also do listings. All 3 of them do. And that's my team. So it's just 4 of us that are in production and then 2 admin. But last year, my team did 200 deals. This year, we're hoping to add an extra 100 on top of that. 2 of my agents were less than a year in the business last year. Everybody on my team did 6 figures. Almost everyone on my team did multiple 6 figures. And so it's been a really cool thing. I was able to travel last year. I was out of the state of Utah. That's where my business is located, over 120 days. And I've set up a couple side businesses. And so I really get that freedom and autonomy that I've been looking for. I've kind of set it up that way. And that's most people that kind of hear my story, that's what has them most intrigued, is how, like, next week, in fact, Friday this week, I'm headed to Israel and Egypt and Jordan, Petra, for 2 weeks. I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro March 2nd with some NFL guys that I'm friends with. And last week I was in Miami with you guys. The week before that I was in Boston for the AFC Championship game. A buddy of mine, or the AFC, not championship, the game against the Chargers, the Patriots. A buddy of mine plays middle linebacker for the Patriots. And so I've just been able to have a really cool last couple of years here. Has been really amazing. I've been able to actually build that life that we talk about when we get into real estate, as opposed to just grinding and working 80 hours.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that is like the hook. If there has never been a better hook to one of these episodes, that was it, right? So all these trips, hanging with the jet setting crew, swimming with sharks, all that's awesome. But I got to ask you a question. Are you prepared to share the good, the bad, and the ugly with our audience?
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So kind of to get the motivational ball rolling, as you're making the shift from, like smile and dial solo agent to business owner to really having a business that serves a lifestyle. Was there any success quote that you kind of hung on to over the years that you keep going back to internally?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, that I had this on my wall. Actually, I had it, the stencils that you get up on your wall that the women like to use. But it said the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is successful people have merely learned to do the things that unsuccessful people don't want to do. And I love that quote because it's so true in every aspect. Like most people know what they need to do to be successful. Most people know where they're falling short in life. It's not a matter of knowing what to do. It's simply they don't want to do those uncomfortable things. They don't want to do the things that the successful people are willing to do.
Yeah, there's like a dozen different things as a real estate agent that fall into that category.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right, cool. So let's break down your growth. So you've been in the business for 15 years. Break down however it makes sense for you. I mean, if there's sort of pre-administrative assistant where, that early phase, like how long did it take you to get to the point where you were busy enough to hire an assistant? Then when did you commit to hiring other agents? And let's break down the challenges of each phase of growth. I think that'll best serve the listeners.
For sure. And even right now, my biggest issue, there's no reason I don't have 15 or 20 agents on my team. They'd all want to come work for us. I took the time to set it up, and maybe, that's probably the next phase in my business. So when I say like, I got a really good team set up now, it doesn't mean that it's exactly where it needs to be or anything else. It functions the way that, for me, I'm very proud. One of my buyer's agents is actually in Hawaii right now, with his family. And one of my other buyer's agents, I just found out Saturday, he's leaving on a cruise to Haiti and to the Caribbean. And so I'm like, I love that though. Like my team, actually, we all, have these lives where we take time to do all these things. But when I first started out, my first 6 months, I think I sold like 4 houses. Didn't know what I was doing. Didn't, really, my broker didn't really know what he was doing, if I'm being honest. And then I found Mike Ferry, which was the best thing that ever happened to me in that time. Because it was everything that I wanted to know about real estate. Like I think the flyer said, have you ever wanted to know how to work with for sale by owners? Have you ever wanted to work with expireds? And it was all the things. I'm like, yes. And so I ended up, my next 6 months after that, I sold like 60 houses. The market was on fire. All you had to do is get in the way of deals. And so once I think I hit 45 transactions, I hired an assistant. Didn't know what I was doing. She was pretty good, actually. I got pretty lucky. But then I, kept hearing about this team concept, and I was like, okay, it was kind of getting new. And I just joined Keller Williams, switched over to them, and they were talking a lot about teams. And so I read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. This is 2006. I'm like, got it. I'm going to do this. So I went out, hired a second administrator, hired 3-4 buyer's agents. And then next thing I knew, the market collapses and nobody's making any money. And I mean, we are doing everything we can to survive. And I had to let the one admin go. My other administrator, I said, look, why don't you go back to school part-time, and I'll pay you half what I was paying you. I'll pay for your school, get your degree, and we'll try to get as much done in 5 hours as you've been doing in 10. And then the buyer's agents, one got pregnant and needed insurance, so she left. And then another one got out of the business. And then another one actually went and joined my dad's company selling insurance. And it was back to me, my brother, Dale, and my assistant, Chris. And man, it was a struggle. I mean, it was like there was multiple times I had to tell my admin, he was my best friend too, so even harder. But I had to tell him like, hey, like, here's your paycheck. Don't cash it yet. We need the whatever deal to close, and then you can go ahead and cash it. I mean, it was survival mode. I was still the number 1 agent in our Keller Williams office. And I took about a 65% pay cut for 2008 and 9 just because of the market and what had happened. And I remember in 2008, I called over 5,500 for sale by owners that year. And I listed 187 for sale by owners, to give you an idea. Of those 187, I think like 14 of them actually sold. I mean, it was crazy. It was like I was their best chance, and I was a terrible choice. There was no good choices. There was just nothing, there was no good choices to sell your home. Everybody was upside down 20%. And so anyway, I mean, we really battled, and it was just me in that time frame, just me and my brother and just one admin. and we kept pushing. And then in 2010, I kind of had this epiphany. I was like, I'm going to go after the people that have money. And in my market, there was a lot of guys that go do these summer sales programs for the summer that had a lot of cash coming back. And I knew investing was going to be a good choice. I knew the market was way down. And so that next year we went, I think 2009, I think we sold like 40 homes or something. The next year we doubled it. It was like 78. And then that was when I met with my coach, and we came up with this idea for, listen, if you want to build your life a certain, because I was about to get out of the business. It was just like, I was working so hard and I had nothing to show for it. All my investments had essentially, I got lucky enough to get rid of them, but I didn't make any money. I didn't have any money in the bank, and I was working my butt off and not bringing any money in. I mean, I'd been working 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 5 years now, and had basically nothing to show for it. And so I started looking maybe some other careers, but I'm like, I like real estate. I'm good at this. I want to do this. And that was when we kind of came up with that idea of like, all right, let's build what your perfect life looks like. What key positions do you need? So that required getting another key hire for a buyer's agent, switching the role of the admin, switching the role of my brother, who was one of my, my buyer's agent. And so then I set up my business over the next few years, and little by little, I just gave my team more and more chance to work without me being here. Well, then we started having a lot of success. And then in 2012, I decided I wanted to continue my education. So I went to Arizona State, which is 9-hour drive. I mean, I had to fly there, live there in Tempe. And in order to leave my team, though, I mean, we were having success at this point. We're selling 90 homes in 2010, 2011. I had to set my team up in a way where they could function without me. And that was the best thing I ever did, because for a year before I left, I knew I was going to be in another state. So I learned to take listing appointments over the phone. I learned to let my buyer's agents be buyer's agents and go show the homes. I learned to let my, teach my admin how to do CMAs and do these different things. So I actually went to Arizona State, and after I'd set up my team to work without me being there physically, I left in August 2012. And 2013, so it was a 9-month program. It was literally, you're in school from 8 to 2 every day, Monday to Friday. And then I'd fly home about half the weekends just to meet with certain people I needed to. But my team in 2013 sold 187 houses. And it was my best year I'd ever had. I made the most money I'd ever had. I got some really big investor clients. And I realized that, they say the average buyer takes 34 hours. Well, not if you do it the right way. The average buyer for me was taking like 2.5 hours. And, they say the average listing, like there was just this idea in real estate, you have to go see the house to list it. And I just learned to take them over the phone. I had to, I wasn't in Utah. And so I got really good at just taking the listings over the phone. So now, like last year, I went to, I think 21 new countries. I spent a week in the Bahamas, like you said, some of my sharks. I went to Machu Picchu, Panama. I went all over the world. I went to Europe. I went to the Ryder Cup with a bunch of friends in Paris. I went and did all these cool things, and my business functions fine because, I went to Bali for 2 weeks, and Indonesia, Malaysia, all this stuff, because I can be just as effective from Bali as I can from Orem once I set up my team the right way and set up the structure. So my clients don't have this expectation they have to work with me. They work with my team, and my team has grown. So when in that year I went to Arizona, I brought on 2 more agents, and you kind of, it's hard when you have a team. You always have to have the systems down, because buyers agents come and go, and people come and go out of your system. But now I've got a very strong core where everybody on my team, will do 40 plus deals this year. And I'm hoping to personally do closer to 60 to 75 as opposed to 100 to 120.
Yeah. So there's two things in there that I want to dig into. The first one was the mindset of working through those 3 to 5 years where it was just
brutal,
hard. So I want to dig into that. So maybe we'll go there first. And then I want to dig into the fact that you were, one of the first business books I read in 2007 was E-Myth, which essentially you just decided that I'm going to run this thing as if I can't be here, which
That's
is
right.
The E-Myth question is, if you had to replicate your business 10,000 times, how would you think about it differently? And you'd have to think about it with systems. Like I can't, if I had a listing appointment in 10,000 locations at the same time, like the only way to do it is if I record a listing video. or the only way to do it, like it just forces you to think about your business differently. So let's go to the mindset around like what the heck drove you to keep working for years in a row when it felt like you were getting nowhere? Is it just part of like your DNA, or what was the mindset that got you through that?
No, and I think you're always you have to have the why that's big enough that, you know, that you keep pushing through the problems. Because I mean, to list 187 for sale by owners and basically none of them sold. I mean, you're literally like, and I was truly felt and feel to this day, I was probably their best chance. I mean, I really worked hard to sell those. And every week I'd have 40, 45 listings. I'd have to call them up and let them know, like, nobody came to see your house. We need a price reduction. I mean, I had a goal of like 10 to 12 price reductions a week. It was the only way to sell homes. And I mean, it was brutal on, you know, I sat across from tables and just watched couples literally divorcing in front of me because the husband bought an investment property when the wife told him not to, and upside down 90 grand, you know, and stuff like that. I mean, it was happening over and over. It was really hard on me. And I always had these big whys. I always knew, like, down the road, I know that big things are going to be there and I have to get through this. And when I first got into real estate, I was coming off of a company. I sold meat door to door for 3 years. Steak and chicken, you know, the guys that put the freezers in the back of their truck, that was me. And we tried to franchise. I had a partner from the Netherlands. He ended up stealing all the money, and it's a long story. But so when I started in real estate, I had about $120,000 debt. So I didn't really have an option. I literally, as a 24, 25-year-old kid, felt like nobody's ever going to want to date me. I have all this debt. I'm never going to get married. Nobody's going to, like, if people found out, they're going to think I'm a fraud when I've been trying to work hard. And so, like, my back was against the wall. So like the first couple of years, it was just, you know, my big why was to pay off that debt. And I put a poster board behind my door in my room. I didn't want anyone to see it. So it was behind the door, but it had everyone I owed money to. And then how much, and then every month I'd send a $2,000 check here, $4,000 check here, $1,000 here, and cross it off. And, you know, and eventually I paid that off. And it was such a good feeling. And so after that, you have new whys, right? Like I mean, everyone around you is struggling. And I just knew, I mean, I was still selling enough homes. I think my worst year, we still made, I don't know, $165,000. I'm like, I don't know where else I'm going to go do that. So I just knew I was going to keep working and working. It was kind of cool. Like, looking back now, I built my business in those years because I just contacted so many people. I worked so hard. I worked so hard on my skills and my business that it's set up for what I kind of have now. And so I think for anybody that's looking to hopefully one day be able to run their business like I, am able to now, there is going to have to be a grind, and you kind of just know, like, I'm going to have to work hard. I've never been afraid of hard work. I served a 2-year service mission where I was knocking doors for 11 hours a day. Like, I don't mind hard work, selling meat door to door in the snow in Utah is hard work. So I wasn't afraid of hard work. It was just the mental, emotional grind of these people just losing their homes and just losing hope in the market. And so I guess for me, it was just always reinventing my whys, I had vision boards. I had ideas for what I wanted my life to one day look like. And so that was what got me through day to day.
Yeah. Awesome. I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about, I don't think it's shared often enough in our industry, some of the failures that we go through to get to the success. Maybe are there a few times you can think of, that were just those failure points where it wasn't fun or you considered giving up?
Yeah, I remember in particular in 2009, I think it was May of 2009, I was just tired. I mean, I was beat up. I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I remember I met with a couple companies that did other types of sales. And I remember talking to them, and I was really interested in doing it. And I said, look, I either need to double down on real estate and just know that this is going to be my career, or I'm going to try to do these other things. And I even went for a week and did something a couple times. I mean, keep in mind, I was like the successful guy. Like, I was the guy that was I was number one in the office. I was, but I was young and I didn't know how to budget, and I didn't know, I literally had nothing to show after 5 years of work. I'd worked so hard and I had nothing. Like, all my real estate investments had gone to pot, and people took advantage of me when I was younger. I didn't know what I was doing. So like I put 50,000 into Ponzi scheme. You know, I once invested another $50,000 into a dental clinic in Arizona. I thought I was going to be part owner of this dental clinic. To this day, I don't think that thing ever existed. I think the guy just took the money. And so like I really had some hardships between the meat thing and the dental thing. I mean, up till 2010, everything I tried to invest in, every dollar and I was just aggressive. I was trying. I really was just like this kid that was just so excited to, you know, create wealth. And I thought I was doing it all the right way. Like at 26, in November 2016, I owned 13 properties. And my mentor, Mike Ferry, told us all at a little conference, he's like, the market's crashing. And so I got rid of 11 of the 13. I made money. And then the other two, I lost $100,000 each on. So it was funny because it was like I had just gotten through like this debt paid off. And then I had to take on new debt for these other houses. And I paid that off. And it was like you just never had any money. And then like you finally get 60 grand. And then it was like I had to pay my taxes. And it just felt like I was never getting ahead. So like when I say, you know, it was a total grind. And there was a lot of times where you're just like, man, like it's not supposed to be this hard. And so, but what it did is it really calloused me against any kind of negativity, any kind of bad markets. And then all of a sudden you start making some real money. And I made some really, ever since 2010, I've made nothing but great investments. You know, I now own 11 properties that all have between 20 and 100% equity. I've been able to invest in some private companies that have done very well. And so I've built now, you know, a portfolio that, you know, I'm super proud of. But it was like, I just kept getting hammered when I was younger, man. And then I found what I thought was the perfect agent to be on my team. And I trained him for like 4 months. And then he left immediately upon like his first couple of deals closing. And he's like, yeah. And then now he's my biggest competitor. He sold 90 homes last year. I trained him step for step what I did, you know, and you're just like, damn, he was always taking advantage of me. And so, yeah, I mean, those are a couple failures that come to my mind, but I don't look at them as failures. I think that's just part of the process. It's, you know, I'm now 37. I've been in the game for 14, 15 years. And I honor that path because it's like, I'm not sure. I can't actually say what one thing kept me going when it was that hard. But, and it didn't even feel that bad when I was in it. Like looking back, it's not like I was miserable. I just remember being like working so hard and just every day though, you're like, why do I not have any money still?
Yeah. And the next thing I want to talk about is, you know, it sounds like it served you in a bigger way. This going back to school, 9 hours away, you know, from your real estate team, ended up serving you in a different way. But talk about that. Seems like that was the transition point when you realized that you could do things differently, still have a real estate team, but not be attached to it. And now it's led to a life of freedom that, I mean, I've honestly never seen, you know, the amount of freedom that a high producer can have. But talk about that transition point, that, you know, where the light bulb came off, where you just saw the business a little differently. Most of our industry will never make that transition from, you said, conventional success, right? If you're selling 30 to 40 homes a year, your life sucks. Like it just sucks. And you're not making the kind of money that people think you are. You're stressed because you don't know where the next deal is coming from. You're working 7 days a week, evenings, all of it. But talk about that transition for you where you really started to view the business differently.
Yeah, it was probably more started in 2011 when I decided I want to go do something different. I just wanted to mix up my life. I always try to challenge myself with new things. And so I took that full year and I said, what would a business look like if I wasn't here? And it was really letting go of the reins and trusting my team and just taking care of those people on my team, saying, look, we're going to grow this thing together, but here's some new things we're going to have to do that you're going to have to start doing. And then letting them make mistakes. And over that next year, it was set up. And so then I left. And I mean, I had so much anxiety about leaving because like, things were going well. They've been going well for about 2 years at that point, but it wasn't like I was set. You know, I had a little bit of money in the bank now, finally. I had all my debts gone. So I was comfortable, but it's like, all right, I'm going to another state. This whole thing could collapse on me here. And I mean, I'm not going to lie and say I didn't work while I was in Arizona. I mean, as soon as class was done, I'd go home and work for 5 or 6 hours from Arizona, doing whatever I needed, making phone calls, running CMAs, talking to clients, all that kind of stuff. But what it did do is it taught me that, like, and here's the way I looked at it. I was like, I made, at the time, I'm like, I made $650,000 last year. If I called my doctor or lawyer who's making $650 and said, hey, come out to my house, I need to talk to you about this disease or this problem I have with my leg or something, he'd be like, no, come to my office. Like, what are you talking about? Like, in real estate, we had this mindset, like, we always have to go and we have to cater to the client. And I was like, I wonder if I just make sure that I speak more like an expert and know more, they trust me. If they'll just do what and so, like, on a listing, I'd just be like, well, tell me about your house. And then I'd be like, all right, is there anything that would add or subtract value to the home? All right, cool. Let me run the numbers and I'll just send you the paperwork. Let's see what price we need to list it at. And they'd be like, okay. And every now and then they'd be like, well, don't you need to come see it? And I would just say, I don't know. Is it going to change the value? Is there anything I need to know? They'd be like, well, no. I was like, yeah, I'll send my camera guy. I'll get the photos. If there's anything that looks out of place, he'll let me know. And they're just like, oh, all right, cool. And then they were fine with it. It was like so bizarre. It was like so much easier than I always thought. And so anyway, so I just started doing that. And you can't do that with for sale by owners, obviously, but I'd worked hard starting in 2010 on my SOI. So at that point, 85% of my business was now people I knew or people that had referred people to me. So like last year, of the 200 deals we did, I think like over 175 of them were like SOI, like people that I know. So, or people that have been referred from them. Like, my job now is much more focused on just taking care of the clients and having the right people to do that, as opposed to trying to always go out and hustle new work. And so I think that's what really helped me in that transition. But yeah, I think that's where I just said, I was like, I don't want to do real estate like this anymore. I don't want to, we had a real estate agent actually got murdered 3 or 4 days ago here in Utah. And it was a crazy story. Like, he went to collect or to evict a client from a house or something, like a renter from a house, and they shot him. And I just kind of thought to myself, I'm like, man, that could have been me just as easily as it was him. And I'm like, I'm just grateful that at least the last couple of years I've done these other things that kind of more what I've wanted to do. I've now been to over 50 countries. When my buddy Eric died, it really woke me up. And I just said, like, I'm going to go do these things, and I just booked a trip to Ireland and Scotland with my 9 best friends. We went and did the Grand Canyon last year, all of us. It's like, we're not talking about high school memories anymore. We're making new memories all the time. But here's the funny part is, like, every one of these trips I go do, like I did a trip to Panama with 40 friends. I've sold 3 homes to people from that group, right? I go do this trip where I have a houseboat, and I do this big trip with like 40, 50 friends. And I've sold more homes from taking people to that trip on the houseboat every year. I do it 3 or 4 times a summer than anything else I do. So people are literally like, I'm just putting myself in places and opportunities where I'm surrounded by enough people, and that I get those opportunities to make those connections that I don't have to prospect the phones every day. And so me going, like, I went to Paris with that group. We went to the Ryder Cup. A buddy of ours, Tony Finau, was actually playing in it. And so 4 of us go out to Paris. Well, one of the guys in that group is a builder. He ended up hiring me as his realtor, and I've sold 14 homes in the last 2 months that came through him. Like, I'm now his preferred realtor. I literally set that relationship up going to Paris with him. And so it's not that I'm just out playing and doing these stupid things, but I just learned, here's what I want to do with my life, and here's how I'm going to use that to become the top agent in my community. So, like last year, I set up a podcast, and I interview the most amazing people here in the state of Utah. And I've now had 120 guests on the show. And I get anywhere from 15 to 100,000 listeners per episode. Now, I've had Mitt Romney on, I've had jazz star players, I've had NFL guys, your top business guys in the community, top social media influencers. They've all been on my show. And what it's done is every single episode, of course, I bring up real estate. I get to talk about real estate. So I've got all these people hearing about real estate. In fact, I just had lunch with a kid. That's where I came from before here. And he goes, yeah, I heard you on the podcast with Rich Wood, who's the CEO of New Skin. It's a Fortune, 5,000 company here in Utah. And he's like, dude, that was so good. I sent it out to my entire sales team. And I'm like, that's how this dude heard from me. So again, doing things I already want to do, hanging out with my network, going and meeting these cool people and having these awesome experiences is what has helped build my real estate business.
Yeah, that's there's so much in there. Yeah, David was a real estate B school member. Yeah, that was
crazy. Yeah.
And it's being in Brendan's mastermind, where he has firsthand mortality motivation. Right? Like, how do you how do you like the song, like how do you live your life like you were dying,
Well, that's
and
what the podcast for me, I said, if I could, I mean, I live a pretty extreme life. I could die tomorrow. You saw, swimming with 20-foot sharks, whatever. It doesn't matter. And I'm like totally content with this idea that I might die, but I'm absolutely going to leave behind a legacy. And that podcast is part of that now, like I could die tomorrow and there's enough out there. Like I could get to know that guy. And so all these things that I've just now started creating and doing, it's part of that. I just, who knows how long I'm going to be here. So I'm going to enjoy it. I didn't want to, my life ends and like people just say, yeah, he was a realtor. Like, I'm sorry, like we're awesome, but I didn't want that to be my legacy.
yeah. I want to dig into the current business a little bit. You told us a little bit about this team structure. It sounds like your database is a good bit of the business. Give a struggling agent out there like a brief blueprint for how to build a database-driven business. Like I've only spent a couple days around you, and you're clearly a connector, and it sounds like it's not in a selfish way. You're just naturally like connecting this guy with this guy with this guy. But give us a lesson, like a 2-minute lesson on building a database driven real estate business.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is everybody needs something. Figure out what that is and do it. It's like Zig Ziglar said it so long ago. If you help enough people get what they want, you're going to get what you want. But I really do that. I really honor that. So whenever I meet somebody, I'm always thinking, what can I do for this person? How can I help this person? And I just take the time to do that. But then, like my higher end friends, a lot of the people I hang out with that are, more well-known, popular, whatever you want to say, that are just, icons in the community. I just say like those people are dying to have relationships with people that aren't trying to get something from them. Like so often people come up to me all the time after I speak or something, like before I even know their name, they got their business card in my face. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know you. I don't, like, I'm not going to help you do anything because I have no connection to you. So for me, I'm always looking for opportunities to serve them. How can I help that person? And it sounds cliche, but like I actually do it though. Like every day I literally make a conscious effort of like, all right, what can I, like for Christmas, I sent out 300 Christmas presents, 200 books to past clients that had a personal note to each one. I had a buddy I ran into the other day. He's like, dude, I got your book. Thanks so much, man. He goes, hey, one thing that you should do next year. He goes, that was so cool that you do that. He goes, will you write in my book the note instead of have a separate note next year? Because I want to remember that. And I'm like, great idea. That's what I'll start doing from now on. But like and that dude bought a house off me last year, and we've done a couple flips together over the years. But it's like, I just make an effort. Like I put that effort in. I go to lunch at least once a day. I connect with people. I make it. It's a plan. I actually, because I got really good at it. Actually, I don't want to pitch anything, but like if you follow me on Instagram, I do stuff all the time where you can see what I do. Jimmy Rex, Mr. Jimmy Rex is my Instagram handle. But like on Wednesday, you know who Gerard Adams is, the millennial mentor. So he sold his company Elite Daily for $50 million in 2015. He's got this giant following online. Well, he's a friend of one of my best friends, is like close friends with him. So we're doing just a mastermind for 100 people in my community. We're getting together and we're all he's going to come and talk to us. And we're just putting that together to connect people. So at that event, rather than me prospect for 4 days straight, I'm going to connect 100 sharp people that all are going to be excited that we did this thing for them, and we'll all be together, and then it's like a Thursday night, is Sundance here in Utah in Park City. And we got a group of us going out to the club that night. Diplo's, happens to know another buddy of mine. So we're going to be hanging out like this after party with like the star of the concert. And I got 20 friends that are be coming along. This is how I built this up, but it didn't start with that. It started with like, maybe it was just whatever, like somebody put on Facebook that they, hey, does anybody know a good chiropractor in Salt Lake City? And I didn't know one, but it's like, I Google it real quick, chiropractor Salt Lake, find the guy with the most stars. And then I was like, hey, this guy's really good, I hear. And I would just took me 90 seconds. They could have Googled it themselves, but you see this all the time. People are like, hey, anybody know where I can find a whatever? And we just pass them up like this stupid. We just think to ourselves, like, Google it, dude. But I actually take a minute and I do that for them. Or if somebody says, hey, I've been meaning to get a hold of so-and-so. Do you know him well enough to make that connection? So a friend of mine on Friday, he was looking to, have you ever heard of the Willet blend, the blenders where they blend like iPhones and
Oh yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I've
So the
seen
guy
those.
that the CEO founder is a guy named Tom Dixon. Well, I had him on my podcast. His son-in-law is a friend of mine. That's how I got him on. And he's like, does anybody in this group, he sent a group text. Does anybody know Tom Dixon over at Will It Blend, Blend Tech is the name of the company. And before I got to the text, a few people were like, I know someone that works there. I know someone that knows someone. I'm like, oh yeah, I know Tom. Here, I'll give him a call. Boom. And he's like, of course you do. Like, but that dude has referred me 4 or 5 real estate clients in the last year. And, he's a dude that I know is like a raving fan of mine. I took the time to make the connection again for him, just things like that over and over again.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, I want to ask you some rapid fire questions, so short answers.
Short answers, got it.
What keeps you up at night when it comes to your real estate business?
Fear of having to jump back into it all the way because I haven't set up my systems well enough.
What were you most afraid of when you started your real estate team?
People on my team not succeeding.
What's the best advice you've ever received about business?
When you're hard on yourself, life's easy on you. When you're easy on yourself, life's hard on you.
Oh man, that's a good one. How about a daily or weekly habit that you think contributes to your success?
I literally map out who I'm going to call that week. And I am religious about calling my friends and having conversations with them and making sure they're doing okay.
That's awesome. How about a book? So for someone that wants to start the journey of building a business beyond themselves, what book would you recommend?
Honestly, I know it's cliche, but the one that changed my life the first time was the 4-Hour Workweek with Tim Ferriss. Because what it did is it just opened my eyes that there's a different way to do this. I actually got to have brunch with him 2 weeks ago. His girlfriend's a close friend of mine, and it was crazy how that all came about. But I told him about when I read his book and how it changed my life. Super cool.
Yeah.
But that's one that it's, there's any book that teaches you how to live, I think, an exceptional life. Because that, to me, it's strategy comes when you have the motivation to want to strategize. Most people just go through the motions of the day. They just take what life gives them. When you really get clear, oh man, my life can be so much more than it is, then you're motivated to actually figure out how to make that happen. So until you actually have the motivation to do it, I don't think any of that matters. So for me, I guess I get more clear on really what you want your life to be. So anything by maybe Simon Sinek or something like that, I think can inspire you for that.
Yeah. And it's really we're so myopic in our thinking in the real estate industry, it can't possibly be done a different way. You can't possibly have someone else open the door to a home to let a buyer of yours in. It's radical thinking showing you.
Right. Well, the funny thing is I don't even think the stuff I think is that crazy. And people are like, have you heard how Jimmy does it? And it's it just makes sense to me, right? It's people always, literally, I had somebody say to me about something I did last year. No, it was a year and a half ago, but she's like, you can't do that. And I literally looked right at her because I'd already done it. And I go, well, apparently you can. And it was just a way of doing it. It was my own way. And she's just her mind was blown. And then she saw the results that it got me. And she was just asking me if she could learn it from me. It's just, I literally just looked at her. I'm like, well, apparently you can.
Yeah. As we kind of wind it down here, a lot of people in our industry, even though it's a decent market, a lot of folks are struggling. What words of encouragement would you have for 85% of agents don't have even an assistant? What words of encouragement would you give someone who's struggling right now?
I think whenever we struggle in real estate, we're just not being focused on the important things. If you're making 4 hours of calls a day to people that past clients, center influence, if you don't know enough people, then for sell by owners or Zillow leads or whatever it might be, your internet leads or just going and knocking doors. If you're spending 4 hours a day doing that, then you're going to be busy with work. You just are. You are going to have clients. And if you're not, then you work on your skills. But I think the number one thing I would say is just, you got to double down on your prospecting efforts. And for me, it's all friends now. So it's fun. It's calls, but it wasn't. I'm telling you, I did not make up these numbers. I called over 5,000 for sale by owners in 1 year and talked to them, had conversations. I went from having the success of 1 out of 70 calls commit to an appointment to 1 in 11 by the time I was done calling them. And so I think for most people that are struggling, it's a work thing. You just got to work harder. The market, and I've been saying this for a couple of years, I was like, if you got in the business since 2011, you have no idea what a tough market even looks like. You don't. It was so hard to sell houses. Every single day was an absolute ass kicking to sell houses. It was so hard. And so like, I think they don't even know how hard this can actually get. It's not even hard yet. Like, it has shifted already and it's already harder, but this is still a good market. We're still in a good market. This is 2010, 11, right? This isn't 2008, 2009. So I don't know. I just, like, really buckle down on your prospecting and coaching. Like, coaching changed. I've had a coach since I got in. My first coach I hired, I literally didn't have any money. I had to tell him, I filled out the credit card info and I said, you can't cash this or run this for 3 weeks because it will not go through. I have a house that's going to close. Here's my cell number. If you're willing to do this, I want to sign up. And I did. And I went from my first 6 months doing like 4 or 5 homes. My next 6 months, I closed 60 homes. And it was literally that coaching and knowing what to do, because I needed somebody to hold me accountable. I needed somebody to teach me what accountability even looked like. And I was willing to let myself be coached and learn those things.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything you should have shared that you didn't?
I don't think so, man. I mean, I just think it's important. I always say, find talented people and take care of them. Like, the people on my team make a lot of money. There's a lot of agents that make more money than I do in my own market. Like, I don't think anyone has a better quality of life. I'm willing to pay good people a lot of money to make my life better. So for me, quality of life became the most important thing. And so I pay for that. I hired good people. I think people try to go cheap on those things, but find the right people, make sure you incentivize them to stay around and give them their freedom to work, with you, not just taking orders all day.
Yeah. And one thing you said, you had an agent that you really fed into, leave you and now compete with you, so even though stuff like that might happen, it's not shifting back to that scarcity mindset.
No, abundance, man. Even that guy, he called me the other day because his best guy left his team. And he's like, dude, how do you keep people on your team? And I just was like, golf clap, buddy. Yeah. It just made me laugh. And honestly, I have no fear of that. Like, there's so much business to be had. And honestly, a lot of the agents that have left my team, we've partnered on deals or they bring stuff back to me. I mean, I've had 20 agents come and go from my team, either got out of the business or went on their own. And it just, obviously I'm going to do everything I can to keep them, but it's my job ultimately to create enough value that they don't want to leave. And I've got one agent's been with me for 12 years. One's been with me for 11. And then the other 2 just came on, as far as that goes. So within the last year and a half, but I full abundance mindset, no matter what, even if it's like, who knows, like one of those agents that leaves your team, you might end up doing a deal that's worth $100,000 with them one day. And you would have, in fact, I had an agent, I sold a $5 million listing. And the only reason I sold it was an agent that had used to work with me on some stuff, went and did his own thing. He actually went to commercial real estate, but he saw my Facebook post with the video, brought the client, and we sold it for full price. I got $150,000 commission on that deal. And if I'd have burned that bridge with him, I could have. Like, there was some things that weren't great, but we became friends instead. He actually came to one of my client parties with his wife like 6 months before that deal happened. We ended up doing a deal where, how long he would have had to been on my team for me to make $150,000, so just stuff like that.
Yeah. And we were, in the mastermind that we were just a part of, where Ethan, the L in scale was, love is the answer. And I believe in, and haven't known you for long, but there's something in your heart, so even with an agent that may be in your world for 6 or 12 months, I mean, you're going to leave an imprint that they're just not going to forget their time with you, because you're going to serve them at a different level, even if it leads them to believe that you get their confidence so high that they can go out and do it on their own. It's still going to serve them at a high level and just increase the skill set in our industry. So
when I look at it like Bill Belichick, he's had so many coaches that have gone and done their own thing, but there's a sense of pride in that. Like, if, the people that come with me usually leave a lot better. And I take a lot of pride in that, just like he does. It's, you go find someone else, you keep moving,
Yeah. And I think a lot of guys that start teams, they don't really have that servant's heart mentality. And I know where your heart is in terms of what you've been through in your faith and all of that. So I think that really shines through in what you do. So, man, I know you're a busy dude, and just being on here goes to show the kind of heart you have. So I appreciate you and your time. I know our listeners are going to be like beyond inspired by your story and just thinking about your business differently. And the whole 4-hour work week. I thought it was awesome when you were showing me the picture of like you in between Tim Ferriss and his girlfriend, like just,
Yeah,
so
just
I love
friends
the
hanging out.
foundation.
No, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, anybody can reach out to me. Instagram, Mr. Jimmy Rex is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I respond to all those. I love the mentorship. I help a lot of people. So
Yeah, I appreciate Jimmy. Thanks so much.
thank you. Have a good
All
one,
right.
man.